The way the Jewish calendar is put together, there are certain things that need to be read before Rosh Hashanah. We need to hear the difficult Parsha of Ki Tavo last week with all of its warnings and curses. This week's Parsha Netzavim is also to be read before Rosh Hashanah, because this week's Parsha speaks about returning to God. It speaks about the idea of Teshuva. Teshuva means to return. And we need to understand how Teshuva works. I think at the most basic level, Teshuva should be associated with regret. If a person doesn't regret what they've done, they really can't do Teshuva. But we need to pay attention because there are really two different levels that need to be addressed. I want to start with an analogy. Let's say that a man got upset at his wife, and sitting at the Shabbat table, he took a cup of wine and he poured it onto the table. And he did this to upset her. Her beautiful favorite tablecloth is now full of wine. So there's really two things that need to be fixed. One, and this is fairly obvious, this is stained tablecloth. But that's not the whole story. The other story is the relationship. Which means if the person simply tries to take away the stain, that doesn't necessarily fix the relationship. On the other hand, if we try to fix the relationship, the stain may still be sitting there. So we need to pay attention to these two issues. We're told in the Talmud that there's different ways to do tshuva. One way to do tshuva is because one is afraid, and one way to do tshuva is out of love. And it goes further and tells us that if one does tshuva out of fear, it turns something which was a deliberate action, somehow magically, into an accident. On the other hand, if a person does tshuva motivated by love, then somehow it turns this action into a merit, or we can even use the word mitzvah, though technically I'm not convinced that's the right word. But it turns it into something which is positive. So how exactly does this work? So today is the 24th day of Elul. It happens to be the Yortzei of the Chafetz Chaim. So I want to say something in his name. The Chafetz Chaim explained that when somebody does tshuva by fear, they're afraid of the punishment. They don't really regret what they've done. If they would have regretted what they've done, that would be a different story. And really just to emphasize how strong regret is, the Talmud tells us, the Rambam rules, that if a person regrets the good that they've done, it disappears. Which means when a person regrets the good that they've done in front of God, what they're really doing is saying that the relationship that we have is severed. If there's no relationship, then the acts are meaningless. Those mitzvot don't mean anything in the absence of a relationship. Again, the husband and wife whose relationship falls apart, how valuable are going to be the various gifts that the husband brought to the wife? How much will she cherish the things that she brought him? Because aren't gifts really an expression of a relationship? And in the absence of a relationship, what really is the value of those gifts? Which means regret is so positive it can even get rid of the good that we've done. So regret, therefore, can certainly get rid of the bad that we've done. And this really is the logic which is used, and it's very clear when one looks at the way the Talmud quotes this in the Jerusalem Talmud. But to be a little bit sharper, and to go back to the Chafetz Chaim, he said when the person is afraid, they don't regret what they've done. They just regret that they're going to get punished. And here's where the magic happens. God allows us to say, I regret the punishment that will happen to me. And that punishment disappears. Which means the action is there, but they're not punished. So what kind of things are we not punished for? Things that we do by accident. So therefore the logic of the Chafetz Chaim was, if you did something on purpose and you regret that you're going to get punished, the action is there, but is no longer going to get the same kind of punishment as if you did it deliberately. But the action still remains, and it gets turned into an accident. On the other hand, if we do tshuva and we're motivated by love of God, then we truly regret that thing that we've done. Which means, again, pouring that wine on the tablecloth. Do I regret the action that I did, or do I regret the consequences? If you regret the consequences, God allows those consequences to be removed. But if you regret what you've done, God takes away the stain. Now, how does that work that God takes away the stain? He takes away the stain because now there's a new relationship. And perhaps this can be best understood by using the following analogy. Imagine that the distance between man and God could be measured by a rope. There's a rope between us. And when we sin, perhaps we sever that rope. And what happens when we do tshuva? When we do tshuva, when we regret what we've done, we regret that we've severed this relationship. So now we take the two ends of the rope and we tie a knot. We tie a really strong knot because our regret strengthens that rope stronger than it was before it was ripped. Which means the place which is least likely to get torn is going to be the place where that strong knot nail stands. But something else happened. When you tie a knot, the rope just now got smaller. Which means the distance between man and God was reduced and now a little bit closer. Which means that's the magic of tshuva. When I try to fix the relationship, certainly out of love of God, I have new feelings of love and appreciation, and perhaps partially because I appreciate that God has forgiven me and taken away that stain and brought me closer. Which means now the relationship with God is closer than it's been before because of that knot which stands there, because of the regret which I've had. May everybody be fortunate enough to be inspired to fix our relationship with God, to make it stronger than it ever was. And may we all be blessed with a year which is full of health, happiness, success, wealth, and love of God.